Welcome back to Sunday Vibes from a very windy rookery on Clapham Common. I mean, what is going on outside? Storm Eugenie. Was it Eunice?
Eunice.
United. It's all over the place, though. You walked here. How was it?
Yeah, windy, hazardous.
Your hair's recovered. You were very windswept when you walked in.
Oh, I don't care about that.
It's a good look for you, the windswept look.
Yeah?
Yeah, because you're quite naturally rugged, I think.
You're like, I'm such a busy dad. You're like, I'm so brushed off my feet.
I actually am a busy dad.
I was digging it.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely, but it is very windy today. It's actually a red alert in London.
Yeah.
Red alert!
And speaking of windy, Chris Hamill, how are you?
Yeah, maybe we should have done this from home.
Nice. No.
Not many other people out.
He's getting worried now. He's just seeing bin bags fly past the window.
that video of the bin that's like 200 foot in the air is exceptional.
Magical. I love that scene in American Beauty.
Good. Right, this episode, anyway, it's a sharp cut, but is brought to you by Fan Team, who've kicked off 2022 in style with their 250. With their €250,000 Fantasy Champions League competition. We are already a match week in, obviously, but you can still hit the late registration window. It's open until my birthday, 8th of March, 6:30 p.m. You both better get me a gift. Now, entry is set at €25. You, of course, do have to be 18 plus to play, but the top 5 players will receive a minimum of €3,000, so an awful lot of money, and the top 10 will receive a minimum of €1,000. Plenty to play for. £100 million budgets on the table. First pick, £100 million budget.
Mo Salah, probably. You got to go Mo Salah. You got to go Mo Salah.
Champions League, isn't it?
Well, especially if you're a wide forward, you can be a cheat code, and Mo Salah is down as midfielder. He's got 8 and 7.
Yeah.
You've got to get him. Like, it just seems obvious. I think he's down for like 12.5 somewhere in that region. That seems like an obvious place to start. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, this guy is a must-have. This guy's a must-have, and then the rest, I just fill my team out with what I can afford.
Agreed.
Yeah, really strong rationale from you. I'm going to come up with a slightly more stupid suggestion. Marco Verratti.
Terrible.
Going to get me no points.
No.
Scores no goals.
It's not a fantasy football player.
Doesn't even register assists whatsoever, but watched him absolutely unpick Real Madrid. So I'm in love with him. Again, every time I watch him, I fall in love with him. Incredible midfielder. Probably the best deep line playmaker, I'd say, in the world at the moment. Rarely fit either. So terrible choice for fantasy football, but only 8 million.
I would go Kylian Mbappe. I think PSG are going to go deep in the competition, potentially. But yeah, if you're like me, probably us actually, and you've pretty much given up with your regular fantasy football at this stage, get involved in Fan Team's Champions League one as well. There's plenty of links in the description below to take you over there to get involved. Right, anyway, talking Champions League, perfect pivot point, because that is what today's show is all about. An overrated 11 from the Champions League. People love overrated at
unnecessarily
home, don't they?
vitriolic.
Yeah,
this.
but negativity gets clicks, doesn't it, at the end of the day? And the Champions League is much talked about. There's not an awful lot else going on in football. So overrated, Champions League.
To be fair, we gave people the option. 2 other options as well. This was voted for on my timeline. I think 45% of the vote. So this won it comfortably. So no complaints, please.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, there are more teams than players, and we have to pick one player from each team, is what we're saying, isn't it? But there's obviously 16 teams.
So we're going to go 11 players and a manager. There's 16 teams. We can pass a few teams.
We'll have to pass a few teams. It's the only way we're going to be able to get around it. But we can't just pick 6 Manchester United players, guys, because they are overrated.
Should we limit it 1 per team then?
Absolutely. Can? I think 1 per team.
Maybe there'll be an exception somewhere, but
is fair, to be honest with you. We'll start with Sporting because they took a fucking battering off City, didn't they? A humiliation, but who doesn't?
What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're Sporting. They're not even like. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. They're the title winners, but like, it was even seen as a bit of an upset for them to win the title in Portugal. They've now come up against what I think is easily the best side in Europe. I think it goes City, big drop, Liverpool, big drop, Chelsea, small drop, Bayern. And I actually don't think that's controversial, but okay.
Salzburg result has supported your point midweek.
And also I just think they're quite porous. Bayern Munich, but I'm sure we'll come back to that. Sporting, it just feels tough to rag on them, man, because like the only guy in the squad who's got any sort of real international reputation is Sarabia.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people are just like, you've got to see this guy. He's called Pablo Sarabia. He's playing for Sporting CB. If we've got 16 teams and 11 players in our team, I sort of feel like Sporting are maybe one of the sides we don't need a guy from.
I think we pass on Boy.
Pablo Sarabia, £1.8 million loan fee they paid for him. I think prior to this, we thought he was probably a little bit underrated. His 2-year stint at PSG yielded 0.64 expected goals and assists, non-penalty expected goals and assists per night as well, which is, I think, better than Di Maria, better than Neymar this season. So maybe a little bit underappreciated in the French capital. So it'd be really harsh to be like, he's the only one we really know or have a deep understanding of. Let's just pick him and put him in our overrated XI just because we don't think Sporting should be there. So maybe just a hard pass on Sporting Lisbon.
I think a hard pass, although can we just spend 10 seconds complimenting Bernardo Silva for the half volley?
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Well, he's an incredible footballer.
The technique
is
so
vile,
and he deserves a shout out for that. So we're going to pass on Sporting, but what about the Oppo? City. Could we select a player here? We had a great podcast this week. If you haven't listened to the podcast already, talking about £100 million players and ranking them in order of success, I suggest you go and watch that.
I've heard it was a coming-of-age podcast for Henry.
It was Henry battling Pat. It was awesome. It was a crunch match. I've seen Henry wiggling fingers down the camera, which is always a great sign, isn't it? But could we include Jack Grealish?
No. Because he's not overrated. Everyone seems to believe he's rubbish at the moment, and I don't think he is. Like, his goal involvements definitely need to tick up, but I think there's evidence in the underlying numbers that they will. And at least what you get from Jack Grealish, because he's not an out-and-out forward, is loads and loads and loads of ball progression when he isn't actually producing end product. Like, he still creates tons of chances, he's still driving them forwards, he's still incredibly difficult to contain, he still wins them a bunch of set pieces. Like, Jack Grealish is still a real danger that teams have to compensate for. And so as a result, I think those players, I mean, Jack Grealish is not going to stay like this forever, but Adama Traore, you could say, is a slightly similar thing, where he forces teams to adjust to him, and then people say, well, he doesn't actually produce that much at the end, but he has the gravity, which means that teams get pulled out of shape. I think that that's really, really valuable, and it's especially valuable for City.
Yeah, and I think you brought this stat up on the podcast, but he's still top in Europe, isn't he, for dribbles into the box?
Yes.
As well, which does, when you are City and you are consistently facing low block after low block, when he can suck two players in to combat a dribble into the box, it does leave a big old overload on the far side for a Riyad Mahrez.
Exactly, and maybe it's a coincidence, but Riyad Mahrez is having the best season of his career at Man City. He has been unbelievable. Like, the number of goals he's scored so far is insane. Like, the number of chances he's getting in the box, and Jack Grealish is creating over 3 chances a game. Like, I'm sorry, this is not a bad player or a bad performer.
This is a hard.
We do need to distinguish, don't we, between he's not justified his price tag as of yet. Only 4 goal involvements on a domestic front. Only 2 goal involvements in the Champions League as well, and that was a competition that he really wanted to shine in, wasn't it? And I think that ranks him 7th in the City squad at the moment. Like, even Cole Palmer has a goal. They are rolling over the opposition. But we can't compliment Manchester City for being very, very good despite not having a number 9, despite not having a focal point. And then also by the same hand be like, well, the £100 million winger isn't popping. He's not sticking out. His numbers aren't significantly better than everyone else. Like, Pep's teams are great because they're
teams.
They're not more than the sum of the parts, but the chemistry all over the pitch is great, right?
So we're going to say Man City have no. We're going to go 2 for 2.
Well, I thought you'd just be like Nathan Ake.
Well, he is rubbish. Yeah, you can
I mean, rubbish is strong.
But also,
rubbish,
who's rating him highly enough to overrate him? I don't think.
Exactly.
I don't think you can have a player like Nathan Ake in an overrated category when he is not getting enough football.
Yeah, that would be a cheap shot from us just to pick the weakest amongst the squad, right? But I mean,
best team in the world. John Stone.
I wouldn't pick
Edison can be a bit overrated, and I love Edison. Yeah. But Edison, as keepers go, probably because he is so talented, he does have the tendency every now and then to do something absolutely moronic. Yeah. And he has single-handedly lost them games in the Champions League before. You know, it seems that whenever he plays Liverpool, he goes berserk. And it's part of what makes him great. He takes risks that other keepers won't. But often with Edison, he's running out of his area and doing kind of wild stuff. And I do think
about the Bellingham one. Remember the Bellingham one last season where he nearly
got away with
it. Got away with
it. And he kind of does a little bit what we've seen from Pep tactically sometimes in latter stages of the Champions League. It's like he's like, I have to win this, and he overthinks it and he tries to do too much. And I think sometimes I would rather Edison just played like a conventional, excellent goalkeeper, which he's capable of doing.
But I think the conclusion you always arrive at with Ederson is what he brings to the side always far outweighs his shithousery, which can sometimes
once every 30 games or whatever.
I was gonna half suggest John Stones. I think he's a brilliant player, and actually at various points that I've watched him this season, he has been impressive, but he's just not getting on the pitch enough at the moment to justify that massive contract he secured after a renaissance last season.
But playing right back at Sporting.
Yeah, I mean,
who cares?
His league appearances in the last 6 seasons, 23, 16, 20, 12, 22. This season 6 as of match day 26. That is, for someone who's not appearing that regular, they are paying him an awful lot of money. But I still think a very good player. So again, I toyed with the idea, but I'll probably pass.
Let's pass on City though, because there is some whiff teams coming.
We can always come back.
Yeah, we can always come back. Okay, let's go to a team that I'm convinced we'll get somebody from.
We can get fucking 4 players from these boys.
Yeah, I have to say, I thought they were awful against PSG, and we were talking about it off camera.
Pulis ball,
This is the almost the perfect model of why the abolition of the away goals rule was a mistake, in my opinion. They should not have got rid of that rule, because now away teams are going to go to grounds and sit on a 0-0 draw.
Didn't use abolition at first. What was the first? What's the word he used?
Ruinous.
Ruinous. But 2 great words from you, by the way.
But I really don't like the fact they've got rid of the away goals rule, and I think Real Madrid were scratching and scrambling for a 0-0 draw to take back to the Bernabeu and then try and poach something. And I'm actually glad PSG got a result that they fully deserved, because Madrid offered absolutely nothing and have the ability to play it in a way more dynamic fashion than they did there, and the quality in the squad to play in a more dynamic fashion. So I think we can pick at least one player.
They basically did what I think Chelsea could do in the Champions League, but badly.
Yeah.
So Chelsea are exactly that team who can sit deep, defend. They're more physical than you, and then they can race through you at 100 miles an hour and smack you in the mouth. And I think they could do that against pretty much anybody in the Champions League, with the possible exceptions of City and Liverpool. Real Madrid just don't have the speed to do it anymore, and they also don't really have the talent for it. Their defenders are less kind of back against the wall types than they've ever been. Their midfield is not set up in that way either. Benzema is obviously still a great player, but he's not a great lead a 90 mile an hour counter attack player.
Yeah, and was also rushed back from injury for this game.
Yeah, because he's because without him, you've got kind of Vinicius Junior, who's incredibly talented, but the ball's not going to stick with him. He's got to do it all by himself.
Some of the ingredients are still there to counterpunch. Toni Kroos playing Hail Marys to Vinicius Junior. We saw it work to great effect against Liverpool.
But they had a lack of
Champions
dynamism
League.
in the midfield. I thought that was a real problem against PSG. A lack of legs in the midfield. It looked like an old
But
midfield.
it is an old midfield. We've been saying this for quite some time. Yeah,
This is why Toni Kroos should go in our midfield.
Luka Modric is 35 now as well, and looked dismayed at coming off in the 80th minute. I was like, get off, Luka.
You want Kroos in?
Well, you've just said they had no legs in midfield. What are you saying?
I think that Toni Kroos is... are we saying Kroos is... I think one bad performance does not make an overrated player, and I don't think we should be just judging this on
I'm not saying it's on this performance, though. And I'm not saying he's a bad player either, but people still talk about him like he's a world-class midfielder, and he's still a world-class passer. But the other stuff, which was always just about at an acceptable level, is now not acceptable. And I remember we talked about this before when there was a screenshot going around of his FB rep, but it was just his passing.
I tweeted that.
But it was just his passing. And if you look at his defence, it's all red.
Yeah, it's red.
He does do a little bit. He's in position. He doesn't abdicate his defensive responsibility, but he just doesn't have any legs left. And basically, the way I look at it is this: Toni Kroos he's part now of a much worse Real Madrid team, and he's doing less on it. That is a decline. People are acting like that conversation you got drawn into was about whether he's declined, and clearly he has, because he's playing a more limited role on a worse team. Real Madrid are going to get nowhere near the Champions League final. We all know that. They are pretty lucky, to be honest, they're pretty lucky to be closing in on the league title, and they still could give it up. So basically, I just look at them and I think Toni Kroos, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but when I look around that side, in terms of overrated, I don't think there are many people there who are overrated.
I think Danny Carvajal.
Yeah,
think Danny Carvajal.
I think that's fair.
Interesting. We've got 3 different candidates. I want to hear you talk about Danny Carvajal.
I think Danny Carvajal...
It's exactly the same principle, though, right?
Yeah, but the sale of Achraf Hakimi now, comparatively to where we're seeing these two fullbacks, both playing in a back four, by the way, at times is just poles apart. And I think if you were to ask the average fan now, like, oh, Danny Carvajal, they'd still be saying, oh yeah, still one of the world's best right backs.
That's fair.
And I think he's miles off that now.
Yeah.
That said,
the levels of Hakimi and the Trent and the.
That said, Hakimi hasn't really played great football in a back four either. You know, Hakimi's basically a winger.
Yeah, but I thought even against Madrid on the right hand side, he's more a little bit similar to Trent, where I don't even think he's necessarily a right back or a right wing back. It's like he's like a right-sided player. Like he just operates in like half spaces.
If you can give him that,
yeah, it's like he's like almost a right midfielder, and it kind of does work. But I also think he's better defensively than Carvajal. Like there were moments when Vinicius was going at him, and I was totally convinced that Hakimi was going to be able to take the ball off him fairly comfortably.
Great recovery pace, even if he does get beat, right?
And
Danny Carvajal definitely does have that.
For sure, think that Danny Carvajal is now a considerable amount worse than he was.
I think that's fair enough,
ago.
but this whole team is like that now. They're all 1 or 2 years past really when they should have been moved on or slightly.
There was an
kind
opportunity
of
18 months ago to really move this Real Madrid squad on, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And they had sold a lot of very decent assets for very decent money and then spent it on Eden Hazard.
This summer, no? You're going to be doing it? Mbappe, Haaland coming in.
Sure. I mean, you could have a number of players like Toni Kroos from this Real Madrid side that have fallen from a great height. Eden Hazard, Isco, Gareth Bale in this overrated team. People, I don't think, are expecting performances of yesteryear, let's say, from these players. So I've gone for someone slightly different in Asensio. And I've just been waiting for 3, 4, 5 years for this guy to kick on in a meaningful way. Yeah. And it just hasn't happened. And I think that was demonstrated pretty handsomely against PSG. This is a guy who, when he broke through at Espanyol, 10 assists in the league at what, like 19? And you just thought he is going to be a world beater. Yeah. And like since that time, he is just... There's been a little uptick.
He sat out a lot of times, didn't he?
For sure. But there's been a little uptick in his goal scoring numbers this season. That's been a bit of a silver lining for him in an otherwise like another limited campaign, creatively speaking. Last time he created over 2 chances per 90 for Real was in 17-18. Yeah. It was in 2015-16 he put up 10 assists, by the way.
That was the breakthrough.
Since then he's only managed 15 assists in the league for Real Madrid. So... And he's a right winger, and he's playing in a 4-3-3, and he's playing under Zidane, Ancelotti, people that give their wingers a bit of freedom. They're not like Pep Guardiola. They don't expect them to be rigid, support the fullback an awful lot. I just think, yeah, man, like he's super upgradable, and he's 25 now. He should have experienced a peak of some sort, and he's not. And I'm disappointed.
The one thing, a good name in there as well.
Yeah, but I don't think people really think of him as like a great player anymore. Like the one thing
people in the last 18 months gone in fat.
Exactly, and the one thing about Asensio, I think it's a really good case actually for Asensio, because there was a time people were like Liverpool are going to try and nab him off Real Madrid. Now you'd be like, he's nowhere near good enough for Liverpool. But I do think that if you've got like the average football fan to list the players who are world class at Real Madrid, I think they'd include Carvajal. I think they'd include Kroos. I don't think they'd include Asensio. And I think that the difference between Kroos, Carvajal and world class is bigger than the difference between what Asensio is and what he's perceived to be. Because I think Real Madrid are trying to upgrade him, right? Whereas I think they'd still be like, oh, Toni Kroos, still one of the best in the world. You look at like Real Madrid fans on Twitter and they're still like, Toni Kroos gets no respect. Yes, he does. He gets too much, if anything.
I don't think Carvajal would be regarded as world class by the average football fan, because he's pretty much split this season with Vasquez at right back, which is a pretty desperate situation for Real Madrid. Toni Kroos definitely has that Galactico status that would make a bit of a statement if we put him in our overrated side.
It's a good thumbnail, Toni Kroos.
In he goes, get him in.
Okay,
right.
Kroos.
Have I actually won this argument?
Hey. We could we do a second player for Madrid, or should we come back to Madrid?
We can come back.
If we're struggling.
Guys, we've got one player in. We need to move this along.
Toni Kroos, and the comments are now going ballistic. PSG.
All their midfielders could go in.
Are they over? Who's rating the midfielders?
Who's
rating the midfielders? Other than Verratti. Take Verratti out.
Well, he's amazing.
Superstar, incredible. But like, who is rating Danilo and Herrera and Gay?
Whereas people will say like, oh, Kimpembe, he's amazing. Is he? Seems pretty rash to me. Like, he's all right.
He's extremely rash.
He's a bloke. He's a guy.
But he's versatile enough to escape this, I think.
He's a centre-back.
Yeah, but I think he can play on both sides of it. He can play at left-back as well if he's needed to. Like, the support he gives to Nuno Mendes when he is, like, a little bit rash at times as well, I think is... I don't know.
I agree that he's asked to defend wide, but, like, I'm trying to look at the players...
Consistently exposed.
But I'm looking at the players at PSG, and I think most of these guys aren't overrated, really. I mean, Wijnaldum was overrated when he went. Idrissa Gueye is probably a bit overrated now, just because he's slowed down a lot.
We could do Gini.
I don't think
Ramos.
Again, I think that's a slight...
I think we could do Ramos here. I think if you ask the average football fan, they would still have Ramos as the best centre-back in the world.
Kimpembe is like Ramos, but without the big match performances underneath his belt. Like, they're both just aggressors.
Red card machines.
Yeah, but Ramos now is so injured and so out of it that, like, he's putting up 10 performances a season. Like, if you walk down the street today in Clapham and went, best centre-back in the world, not called Van Dijk, you'd find at least 20-30% would say Ramos. I reckon, which he's not.
I think we're out of touch with the general like football watcher, like, because I think when you're really involved in football, then you're like, everyone knows who like Kimpembe is. But I feel like if we just went into a pub and we're watching a football match, people would be like, who the fuck's Presnel Kimpembe? Well, like, so as a result, he's not going to be quite as overrated as someone who 5 years ago was the best in the world.
I think some people will want us to discuss Neymar. Obviously, based on talent, he is a top 3, top 4 footballer in the world. Like, he's an absolute sensation. Without like going over the same ground that the podcast covered, this is a guy who's not put up 1,500 league minutes.
Just checking your notes.
No worries. For PSG in 4 seasons, and he cost over 200 million. He's costing an arm and a leg wage-wise. 32 goals and assists in 34 Champions League appearances for PSG. In that period, I think Kylian Mbappe has 49 in that period, and Haaland has 26 in the last 3 seasons. This is a guy who left Barcelona to step out of Messi's shadow and win an individual award like the Ballon d'Or, and B, win the Champions League for PSG. I know, like, he's been a massive brand player for PSG as well, and he's changed the perception of that club. Yada yada yada.
Overrated. It's harsh to say Neymar's overrated.
No, but I think for people at home, we had to contemplate it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
His natural talent, class.
But our issue is with the move, isn't it, rather than the player?
So do you two want Kimpembe then?
And the output versus the resource.
We could have Kimpembe as a centre-back if you two are both...
No, I think Ramos is better. I think Ramos should go in.
Okay, I'm totally down with Sergio Ramos. I think it's fortunate to be still playing at that level with his injury record.
Yeah, I mean, there was no way I was including Neymar. Just done some research on him, so I wanted to trot it out.
Love it. Okay, next up then, Salzburg. I think we can rip through them because there's not going to be anybody overrated. They're on a budget that's effectively zero, doing really good things and playing brilliantly against that Bayern Munich side, who we should talk about next. Anybody else in the Bayern team? Because again, I feel like Bayern's packed full of quite low budget.
Were you saying as in you're like thinking about it, or you've got someone? Yeah.
No, I don't really have somebody, but I do think that Bayern are slightly disappointing. Like Bayern, I think earlier in the season, it looked like they could be like in the top 2 in Europe, and now I just think the best 3 teams in Europe are all in the Premier League, and I don't really feel like it's that difficult,
isn't it?
They're just porous. They're just really porous. Like I don't know. I mean, like Nagelsmann. The thing I like about Nagelsmann is always doing stuff. Yeah. Like, it's like you can see Nagelsmann happening like all over the pitch, because you're like, oh, why is this wing back getting 5 shots? When Lewandowski didn't take a single shot against Salzburg, and then you're like, yeah, that's Nagelsmann.
That's a Nagelsmann.
But I just think, like we were saying, like about Chelsea before, I could see a Chelsea coming up against Bayern Munich and just brutalising them. They could lose, or Bayern could give up like 3 easy goals in about 15 minutes at Stamford Bridge. I could totally see that happening because they're just like that. Like, so I don't know. When I look at their talent, I think, God, your talent is amazing. But I wonder if you think, we're just used to coming up against teams who have less talent than us.
When you look at their underlying numbers, like, it's pretty common that they blow people away from an attacking sense, isn't it? Because they've got Lewandowski, because Thomas Muller's turned into a fucking creator, like, supremo in the last 2 or 3 years. But actually, when you look at their expected goals against, they're quite close, uncomfortably close to the likes of Mainz, Union Berlin, Freiburg, who have all been very good defensively this season. Don't get me wrong, let's put a little bit of shine on them. But you're like, that's a little bit too close for comfort when you're Bayern Munich and you're expected to be that far out ahead. I had 2 candidates from Bayern.
Okay.
Benjamin Pavard, who was just like... How much did he cost again? Millions.
Not much. Like 25?
Not as much as Luka Hernandez.
It was 31 million from Stuttgart.
Not as much as Luka Hernandez.
Yeah, 75.
75
yeah,
million.
I know. Not justified his price tag. I think we can talk about him as well. And Neuer,
also a piece of shit.
After a 2-year renaissance, Neuer is having a bit of a bad season again, and I think it's because of what Julian Nagelsmann is asking him to do. I had a look at his average starting position, 20 yards out is where he starts like defensive moves from.
Nuts.
It's the furthest out of his goal he's ever been, and I feel like he's a bit like, I'm 35 now. What the fuck am I doing out here?
Yeah, and this is the reason that keepers like Neubel, who they bought to replace Neuer, and he's having a sensational season in Ligue 1. I think the best post-shot expected goals in the league are starting to get annoyed that they are going to give Neuer a new contract, which is definitely going to happen.
His post-shot XG, if people that are familiar with it back home, is I think it's minus 1.6 this
Not
season.
good.
Well, that puts him like 8th, I want to say, in the Bundesliga, and his average save percentage is about 58%, which I think, I mean, I've got the stats down here. I've lost it on the page though. I don't know where that puts him. It's 8th, I think. 8th.
In his defence, he didn't play against Salzburg. That was Sven Ulreich.
Sorry, 69% is his average save percentage. His pass completion is 58%. Just to correct that.
The only thing is, I think there's quite stiff competition for the keeper.
Yes. Well, there's a runaway candidate.
Yeah, there's a runaway candidate. But I do agree that it's one of those things, isn't it, where at a certain point you have to realise that players who were great 5 years ago are not actually that good forever. But I quite like Pavard, and I do think he is a bit of an issue for them. But Lucas Hernandez just feels like runaway. Like Lucas Hernandez has never looked like a particularly above average player, even like neither at left back or at left centre back. But we look at his athletic abilities, we look at his size, and we think, yeah, this guy must be great. But he's just never quite put it together.
He's been the aggressor in that back line under Nagelsmann.
But he is asked to do a lot of defending because they play so attacking under Nagelsmann. The lineup against Salzburg was basically just stick everybody up front.
Yeah.
It was like all four of the wingers, wasn't it, available? Like Gnabry, Coman, Sane played as well. Thomas Muller was in there as well. Lewandowski was up there as well. So when breaks happen, like
it was a real Garth Crooks formation.
when Salzburg broke, which happened consistently, like Lucas Hernandez is asked to defend an awful lot of space.
But if you were to rank Bayern Munich defenders in order of who you'd want defending, Lucas Hernandez would probably be last.
And it'd
probably be Upamecano, Zula. You definitely want them there before him. Pavard, I think, is probably a better defender as well.
His price tag does cripple him in this department, doesn't it?
But I think it's a weird time to pick him now because he's starting to find his feet a little bit. He's actually putting back-to-back performances in. Like, he's obviously struggled with injury in his first couple of seasons. I think he's on 17 league appearances this season, which is not far away from like being his best, and we're only 2/3 the way through the season. Benjamin Pavard, mate, eight goal contributions in his first season. That's fine. That's good. It's what you expect, bare minimum, from a Bayern Munich fullback when they've had 70% of the ball. 1 assist in 1.5 seasons is his attacking output, and I know that's not a prerequisite for a right back. We don't all live, in a Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp world, but like he's becoming extremely like an easy target in terms of areas to upgrade. Benjamin Pavard, like he's a competent defender. I don't see anything like truly glittering about him.
Well, they have invested, haven't they? They got in Omar Richards. Yeah, like who's actually a really promising player. So I think they want a different sort of guy. Like I think Pavard probably still has a home on the right of a back three. He did start as a centre back. They bought him when he was playing centre back and then just played him right back, and he's been playing right back there for a long time and playing there for France as well. But really, like Lucas Hernandez, we were told could be a great left back or a great centre back. Pavard was really a great centre back who's been playing right back for a long time. So in that sense, I guess my standards are higher for Hernandez.
It felt like Pavard was more as a squad
these
player, in my opinion. Like not necessarily a nailed
£31 million squad player.
Yeah, I think it happens consistently across Europe.
I mean,
that's cheaper than their others. Their other defenders.
Well, I mean, that's only recently they've started breaking that sort of fee, isn't it? Yeah. I think Tolisso was their biggest outlay for quite some time. I think if Bayern spend £30 million on a player, they want him to be a key player.
But 75 million is
next. But that was his release clause, wasn't it?
I don't care. That's too much money for Lucas Hernandez, I think. I would.
Have we only got 2 centre backs though?
No, we've got Sergio Ramos. That's it. So far.
We've got Sergio Ramos. Okay.
We've only got Ramos and Cruz so far.
Ramos and Cruz, is that it? Yeah. And Neuer.
Let's just whack them both in.
No, we said no to Neuer because there's a better goalkeeper coming up.
Okay, right.
I'm happy to put them both in, to be honest with you.
I
don't care.
Let's go for 2. Go on then.
Yeah, go on.
That's going to
double whammy.
So we're going to have Pavard on the right, playing as a right back.
Yeah.
Lucas Hernandez and Sergio Ramos centre back.
Okay, cool.
Or Lucas Hernandez left back, Pavard and Ramos.
Well, let's see. Let's play it by ear.
I think player 4 for my brain might explode.
Inter Milan. I would have liked to have had a look at Handanovic here. I thought he was at fault for both of those Liverpool goals. midweek. I know that he's unsighted for the second, but his positioning is so far over to the right, and I think
he's not had a great season.
His footwork for the initial header for the first goal, he's just all over the place, man. Like, it's too many stutters to the left, and then it doesn't feel like it goes right. I think that Handanovic is a candidate, but we've again got a better goalkeeper coming up.
I was going to say, is that enough of a resume?
Not when Jan Oblak's on the table.
Inter's centre-backs were absolutely sensational. For a game that they lost 2-0, their centre-backs were incredible.
Inzaghi's just stuck with the back three, and they've been great in that regard, haven't they? Lautaro Martinez hasn't really stepped up to fill the void left by Romelu Lukaku. I think it's one goal.
But Dzeko has to a level, hasn't he?
Yeah, they're trying to get him to run in behind Konate and Van Dijk, which happened a lot in that Inter game. And to be fair, they got the ball to him really easily, but it was like Liverpool were like, we're okay with that.
I think Dzeko's got 10, hasn't he, from open play?
He's been lethal. His numbers are like early Roma numbers.
Yeah, Martinez 1 goal since December 17th. He's got 11 in the league, but 3 of those are pens, so Dzeko outdoing him in open play, and 0 goals in 7.
This is a tasty pick. I like this. This is a good case.
0 goals in 7 Champions League appearances.
Yeah, because I'd say Inter have more players who are underrated than overrated. I mean, I think Perisic was long overrated until he started playing wing back under Conte, and he's been pretty great.
Lautaro is being sort of talked about. Has he signed the new deal? I don't think he signed the new deal.
He's now been linked with Arsenal as well, out of nowhere.
Had something, let's say a couple of years ago, was being rated as £100 million sort of footballer, wasn't he? In that chat. I think you've made a really good case there. I'm happy.
Him and Romelu Lukaku seem like, lesser players without one another, which is problematic for their two respective sides. What I would say is, I went through this script, and it's hard at centre forward.
Let's go for him.
So Martinez, there's like Paco Alcacer, like Roman Yaremchuk from Benfica not having a great season.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
And then Lautaro Martinez.
It's punchy. Do we want to do Liverpool? Should we skate over Liverpool? It feels like they're more...
I mean, Hendo, I think people are aware of his shortcomings at this point.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I don't think he's necessarily overrated. I think it's just a little bit of a regression physically, which is starting to hurt Henderson. Because he has never classically been like a crazy ball progressor or dribbler or breakup guy. He's been more of like a Genie Wijnaldum type, hasn't he, at Liverpool?
Fundamentally,
that does the difference.
He's exceeded expectations as well. Like, for a guy that had a limited skill set, he's been a very good servant
I think
for
Ferguson
Liverpool.
said he didn't sign him because of how he runs. So
the midfield was Bush against Inter, though. Yeah. Given that when you play Thiago and Fabinho, you expect to have a certain level of defensive solidity, and they got played through so easily, it really took until they were kind of making subs in the second half for them to take full control of that game. And actually, it was one of those matches where, if you look at the XG at the end, I don't think it's representative of the danger that the teams were creating.
Good.
So yeah, I was a bit disappointed with them, and I do think people sometimes overhype Fabinho. But he's
probably me
fine.
being one of them. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, I think we can move on from Liverpool then. Let's go to Chelsea.
Okay. I mean, this might be where someone usurps Lautaro Martinez thinking about it, because their forwards, none of them are really firing on all cylinders, are they?
We could play like a 4-4-2, couldn't we? We could have, Lukaku has got to be in the conversation, hasn't he, given the output this season?
I mean, if we're going to level like Fiat, Luka Hernandez, if we're going to level Fiat, Jack Grealish.
It's goal in over, 1 goal in over every 3 games now, isn't it? Like 5 in 16.
The only thing is, I think what was great about your Lautaro Martinez one, though, is everyone's still like, I'd be happy for my side to pay 100 mil for him. Whereas Grealish and Lukaku are getting pelters every single week.
That I totally agree with that. And I know that he's out of form. I've got images of him coming back from that Club World Cup where he scored a couple goals and refining a bit of form. Whereas a player like Timo Werner, I actually don't think Timo Werner will still be at Chelsea next season. I think he's going to leave.
I don't think he qualifies for this argument whatsoever either, because he gets powers, and like some of his efforts last season were a little bit underrated. Like I think he still contributed to a goal or an assist every other game, which you wouldn't have thought given the amount of like shit that was scripted about him. But the fact he's got I think it's 6 league starts under his belt this season. That is...
I can see him leaving, man. I think he now must be aware that he's probably not got a future at Chelsea. And Chelsea are probably looking at that. Marina nails resale points. She does.
Yeah.
It feels like they're trying to...
It could be now.
They're not bothered about improving him anymore like they were last season. They really tried to embed him into the side, and it didn't work. Not so much this season. But I'm kind of feeling like that with Havertz a little bit as well, and a bit like Pulisic. And then a theme appears, and you're like, whoa, if you were a young, up-and-coming forward, would you go to Chelsea? Would you be a bit reticent, being like, oh, God, the only player who gets any output...
But is this because Romelu has lopsided that team? I think Kai Havertz looks way better in a false nine role, can't play there because Romelu Lukaku's there.
But it's not like he... when you see him play that, you see the team is better, but you don't necessarily see that Havertz himself is putting up big numbers, right? Like, okay, so if they said we're going to play Havertz up front for the rest of the season, how optimistic would you be about Chelsea doing something significant? I'd be optimistic about them maybe gelling a bit better, but I don't think I'd start saying, Champions League is like a really realistic prospect.
Yeah. I'd probably still put my money on Jorginho finishing top goal scorer.
What about Jorginho, Pat? You've got some strong opinions.
Well, I mean, like he's really very strongly overrated.
Well, then it feels like he's a candidate.
I think it was an overcorrection finishing third in the Ballon d'Or. Like, I do think he'd done enough in that calendar year to deserve being in the conversation for top 5 for sure. But there was an overcorrection, and now I think he's probably rated like properly by most sensible football fans. Do you not think there's been a kind of line meeting in the middle over the last year?
Well, it's the classic thing, isn't it, of just like a player's either world class or they're shit. And so like now I think like every time I talk about Jorginho, I think everyone thinks I think he's shit. I don't. I think he's quite limited. But like he's a good footballer. Like he's part of an incredible Chelsea side. But I'm looking around that Chelsea side, and I think there are the guys who get pelters, and then there are guys who are actually good. I mean, Aspi might be a little bit overrated now, just because he's not the defender he was. He doesn't have the pace he once did. He's not as good in the one-on-one. He's not as influential in passing. So maybe him, but it feels a bit harsh. Jorginho is kind of the obvious candidate, unless we want to put him one of the forwards. And to be honest with you, I do think basically any of them could go in.
I do think Timo Werner, to be honest with you. Like Jorginho, I kind of agree with you, has come back down. I think he's been so overrated that people are now like, I don't know, no chance, and he's kind of just fell back to the mean. Yeah. I'm happy to go Timo Werner.
So we need one more defender and some midfielders.
What's the team so far? Can we have a reminder of the team so far?
So we've got Pavard at right back. Yeah. Then we've got Hernandez and Ramos in the back line. Do we have Kroos? Kroos in the midfield, and then we've got Martinez and Timo up front.
Okay. Do we want to do Lille?
I thought we could stick Jonathan Bamber on the left-hand side.
Has he gone now?
No.
He didn't go to Fiorentina?
No, he's still there. Was that a Kone? Anyway, I don't know, but Jonathan Bamber fallen off a cliff this season, hasn't he? 1 assist in 17 starts for Lille. And he's got more yellow cards in the Champions League than he has goal involvements across all competitions.
Even his underlying numbers last season were not great.
No, they were like 8. It was like between 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So,
but he was being talked about big moves.
He was. Yeah. He was linked with a fair few clubs. I don't think he's been massively overrated, but if we're struggling for a left winger, let's just chuck him in.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, put him in.
I'm down with that.
There we go. So now we need 2 midfielders and a defender and a keeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appear at the feet of Villarreal.
Man,
they've not got much wrong.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think this is a passable team. I know
totally fine.
Dan Juma was probably like
a bit of an overpay.
Was it though? Because
he's done well.
He's done well.
He hasn't played much.
No, but when he has played, he's looked super effective.
Yeah,
and he has already been linked with a bigger continual move.
But I don't think he'll get it. I don't think he'll get it if he doesn't play more. Like, this is the problem.
5 goal involvements in 6 Champions League starts.
No, I know. I'm not.
Pretty impressive for a player coming out of
completely agree
Bournemouth.
that he's been good when he's been on the field, but I think when you're a team like Villarreal and you spend that amount of money on a player, he needs to play a lot, and he's just not doing it.
I don't think anybody kind of overrates Dan Juma. Maybe Villarreal themselves overrated the fee to start with, but they were happy to pay that.
It was an overpay, but he's probably done just enough.
Yeah. And we also have Juve up next, who I feel like
everyone
stacked.
Get everyone in.
You know what?
Take your pick.
Let's take Bamber out and put Rabiot back in, because he's playing on the left-hand side of a 4-4-2, isn't he, this season? And the Juve fans fucking hate him. He was clapped when it was announced over the tannoy late December. I remember the Juve fans clapping when Allegri dragged him off at half time. Now we liked him, never had him down as a left wing. He was obviously doing a job out there.
We overrated him
to the detriment of his numbers. But yeah, at PSG his numbers look great, and he's just not developed in 3 seasons at Juventus, and that's partly the coaching to blame and not the natural
partly his attitude and his
ingredients.
agent and his interaction
but
with
the argument
fans.
here is he's overrated, but he's playing out of position and they all hate him at Juventus.
I think that's where Joe was saying that maybe we overrate him. That's our little nuance that we can get in there, our little conduit to this argument.
I'm happy for him going in, but I also feel that basically everyone at Juve could go in.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Dybala at this point is pretty overrated. Bernardeschi has always been overrated. Who else is there? Pretty much the entire back line is overrated, apart from maybe Cuadrado. Like all those guys have just like stepped off a cliff. Actually, De Ligt is coming back into some form. Szczęsny has taken a little bit of a step down in form. Like, I mean, they're just all over the shop, man. I mean, that said, their form recently as a side has got a lot better, but the individual performances, it's just decline. You
mentioned Cuadrado, though. He's having a great season.
Yeah.
Really improved.
Quadrado's been like evergreen, hasn't it?
I know.
10 assists last season, I think it was. Like he's been one of their most consistent performers, yeah.
Yeah, and his underlying numbers are sensational. But I'm happy to go Rabiot as like a little bit of a black mark against our name, because
I think that's fair.
We did say he was going to be...
Well, if we go 4-3-3, we can have Bamba and Rabiot.
Or could we not just... I know he's playing on the left. Could we have him as like a left-sided central midfielder?
Yeah, let's just do that. So we need another mid. We need a left-back or a centre-back, and we need a keeper.
Yes, absolutely. Benfica... I'm happy to move on quickly via Benfica.
Let's get to United.
As I am Ajax, because Ajax, again... I don't see anybody too overrated in that side.
Nobody there's overrated.
You're thinking Tagliafico?
We could put Tagliafico in there only because his stock has plummeted. And this is a guy 2-3 seasons ago was supposed to be nailed on for a move to Chelsea.
I think there could be a left-back candidate operating at Manchester United at the moment.
We could, any remaining holes we have, we could fill with Manchester United players for sure.
I'd be tempted. I'd think about Bamba as well. I wonder if he might lose his place.
Okay, brilliant.
All right, then,
let's go past Ajax and Benfica then, because Ajax is just having such a good Champions League campaign as well. Like, it feels harsh picking anyone. Atletico, it's a tap-in, has to be Jan Oblak. Has he been maybe the worst, player of anybody in the Champions League
he's got
season?
the currency. He's got the currency in the bank to have a terrible season.
Yeah, mate. His post-shot expected goals numbers are the worst in Europe. The save percentage is.
He's having the
Eden
Hazard
Hazard
season.
on wrists, mate.
Remember in the middle of the season, in the middle of his career, when Eden Hazard was like, "I'm taking a year off," and just had a gap year.
He's got the worst save percentage of any player in Europe, any goalkeeper in Europe. How's that happened, mate? He's gone from the highest post-shot expected goals, the best save percentage, to the worst. Something has gone on, surely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right in the sense that if you ask the average football fan, do you think Jan Oblak, is he still world class at this point? Everyone would just say yes without really thinking about it. So that qualifies him for this argument.
That said, I'd have said that through De Gea's downturn, and a lot of people said that during Neuer's downturn, and they were kind of shown to be right.
And De Gea this season, I think, maybe amongst the best post-shot expected goals
he's
in Europe.
He's top in Europe.
I think it's +9.
It's outrageous.
Maybe +9.5.
He's on track to beat that season when he carried you from 6th to 2nd.
The 8 saves against Arsenal. Let's move on then, because we've got the goalkeeper. We now need a left-back right. We need a forward.
No, we need a mid.
A left back and a mid. Okay.
And we could do a forward.
Tap-ins in United.
And Bamba could be ejected from the start
he could, because Man United are just stuffed full. Aren't they? He's just stuffed to the brim.
Go on, you take this then.
You going Telles?
No, I think Shaw's just having such a bad season. Just such a bad season. And obviously Maguire... The thing is, I actually don't think Maguire can go in, because he's no longer rated by anyone. Everybody thinks he's terrible, and he's almost at the point now where, you're well, let's just relax a little bit.
The Pelters counter argument is strong with Empet.
Yeah, it's kind of it's so obvious. He's having a bit of a struggle. People are piling on too much now, I think, with Maguire. So I don't want to put Maguire in, but I do think Shaw is having a surprising downturn, given how good he was last season, how good he was at the Euros. It's bizarre. It is bizarre. Positionally, defensively, seems way off. Going forward, he's lost a lot of that rhythm, overlapping and underlapping. So I would probably say Luke Shaw here. I really hope he refines his form, because United need him badly over the next 3 months, and I can see Telles starting a lot more games in this next 3-month period.
And United... I've seen some strength of schedule stuff for the run-in, and United, I think, supposedly have the hardest run-in in the league. I think you go away to Liverpool, away to City, you got Chelsea, you go away to Arsenal. Yeah,
United have some really tough fixtures. Although I did do predicting the top 4 on We Need to Talk this week by entering every single result across the next course of the season that I thought would happen. And I had United and Arsenal finishing level on points for 4th. Very tight. Even if United have those slightly tougher fixture lists, it's really close. But go and watch that if you haven't already. We're having Shaw as left back. Do we have a midfielder at United? It feels like United maybe
He's
that's
overrated.
actually not a position of overrated, because everybody thinks United's midfield's a whole.
Well, yeah, though I can never work out how good United fans think McTominay actually is. Because sometimes they're like, Scott McTominay.
Nah, we can't put Scott in.
A fantastic player, and you're like, but he isn't. He isn't.
But I don't think you.
I can't tell how seriously you guys mean that.
It's half a bit of a joke, the McSaw stuff, isn't it? And half he worryingly has been our most consistent midfielder this season.
Oh, he'll try.
Who did I have in that example, XI midfield? If we're scratching around for McTominay,
Koke, mate.
Oh, Koke. What has he become? Just looking at his numbers, he used to be
a guy.
Yeah, in 20 to 25, he was an assist machine. He was like a midfielder that did everything. It was like kind of like the midfield version of Wayne Rooney. You know, where they've just been running to the ground. They put up so many minutes between the age of 20 to 26 that you get to 27, they're like, my legs have fallen off.
Do you know what some people might be suggesting in the comments?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
No. And I would probably refute it, but Bruno.
Nah, come on. Have you heard of this player at Manchester United?
Oh, no.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Pat.
He's not good anymore.
Oh.
He is good.
Yeah, he's slightly out of form at the moment, but he is good.
He's fine.
No.
He gets some shots. He doesn't do any work. He complains a lot. He is basically a problem for your structure. He takes minutes away from other players who could benefit from them. Yeah, he's wonderful.
He doesn't take minutes away from players
Not
that can benefit from them. He doesn't take minutes away from players that can benefit from them. I think without him, we'd be out of the Champions League, flat out, guaranteed. All of his goals were crucial to us getting through that group stage. He's by far our top goal scorer. He's actually working a little bit harder under Ralph. I know you're going to laugh at me, but he is working a little bit harder under
he's
Ralph.
Still in the bottom 1%.
Not the most effectively, but he is definitely not overrated.
Okay, but here's the thing. I do think Bruno has massively suffered somehow. Like, Bruno, there's something about the ball where the ball is being funneled. Like, Bruno is basically getting... Don't get me wrong, recently he should have scored more goals than he has.
Some of them chances he's missed recently.
But I do think the downturn in Bruno's form, partially is about penalties, not going to him anymore. But I think part of it is about Cristiano Ronaldo as well. And to me, if I were running that team, I'd be like, how do we maximise Bruno? Bruno is our best player. Bruno and then Sancho.
But United have failed so badly this season, and I don't think it's because of Ronaldo.
I'm not saying it's just because of Ronaldo. I'm saying that he's overrated. I'm saying a lot of your players have got a lot of criticism, and a lot of it's been deserved. But he's a player who actually has managed to evade a lot of the criticism because people are like, brings that winning mentality. Does he? Did he bring it? Did he bring it when you fucking like drew so many embarrassing games like against?
Yeah, obviously
terrible sides.
He was slightly out of form.
I feel like you're getting told off now.
He was slightly out of form at the start of 2022, but I mean, against Brighton, and the goal effectively changes the entire state of the game, and it's an unbelievable goal. And
but I think teams. But then there's a difficulty there, isn't there? Which is, would the team play better overall without him? And I think they would. I think you have played better without him.
Maybe we can leave the last spot to the subscribers, because how long have we been shooting for, Zach?
Let's leave the last 55. Spot to the subscribers.
That's a good idea.
I really like it. It's open to interpretation. Could be a defender, could be a midfielder. You could shift formation. Let us know what you would do.
They're going to put
in
Messi
the
in
comments
or something
below.
You can see the argument.
We'll put up on screen now somehow with the miracle of editing the final team.
Okay. The miracle
of editing.
But
we'll put
it will turn out that we've got like 5 guys. We've got no idea what we've been doing.
And we won't bother to do any quick fire questions or personal
55
questions
minutes
today, because that was a pretty comprehensive rundown. And I'm already now picturing Jan Oblak turning back into a superstar against Manchester United midweek, which is going to be great. And Ronaldo having a stinker, which is going to be even funner.
Have nothing to do, Oblak.
All right, relax. Touch what he does. Anyway, anything you want to plug? Podcast this week, I would suggest, was really good.
Podcast was very good. We were ranking the players who cost over £100 million, slightly fudged that number, but it was Yumi and Henry Hill, and it got extremely heated. Also, I've written an FD Explain, which goes out yesterday, which is about this hilarious conspiracy theory that there's a refereeing agenda against Arsenal. And we thought, right, let's take it seriously and see if there's any evidence for this. Spoiler alert, not really. But I did take it seriously, and I do think, I can see why people feel that way. So we thought it was worth digging into.
Yeah, something a little bit different. Well, I would say that if you want to join Fan Team's Champions League competition, then click the link in the description below. It's €25. The company's from Sweden, which is why we've been talking in euros, or £21 English, which sounds weird to say.
Roughly.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
No.
Roughly £21.
Yeah.
So if you're 18 plus and you've up your other fantasy football, then be sure to check it out. We'll stick the FAQs
Yes.
in the description below.
Love it. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Catch you there. Bye.